Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon to you on the East Coast. My name is Emily McCarty, and we're here for the Spark 7.2 release. So we've got some really exciting things coming up today that we at the Spark team are anxious to show you all. And with me here today is Tanner Brushwine and Eric Mal of the Spark team. And as usual, Eric will be doing the demonstration after we do a quick overview of the new features that we have coming your way. All right, so per usual on the agenda today, we're going to go over what's new, what's been changed, what's fixed, a quick demo, and your questions. And unlike most of our standard Spark releases, this one will actually be a phased release. So for more information on that, please reach out to your CSM. We'll be scheduling some time with each of you all individually as clients to kind of go over what the schedule is going to be for your particular instance to get the 7.2 release. All right, so let's dive right into what's new. The big thing is accounts and contacts, and this is a significant change. So part of those key improvements that we're going to be seeing is an account listing that is showing all of the active accounts in Spark, as well as having a detailed view of more account level information. So, think about the packages that the account is associated with, related information, address, phone number, etc. We'll also have this tailored as part of our new Create Package experience. So now you'll actually be able to cherry pick some of that data and say, oh, I want to use this account, which account and business will be used synonymously in this sense. So, I want to choose this business, and you can import all of their account information into the Create Package, which we'll go into more detail in a little bit. And we're also going to use this as a means to support adding existing accounts to a package. So again, trying to eliminate some of that rekeying of information. And another significant thing that you'll notice along with the accounts is that there's going to be a new homepage navigation item associated with accounts. So when you log into your homepage, if you look at the top left-hand corner, kind of across that top bar where you can access reporting, you'll see a brand new feature that has an accounts listing where you can then click in and see all of the information contained within the accounts. So furthermore, how in the world do we migrate all of your existing accounts and the individuals into our new accounts and contacts listing? Well, we did this a couple ways. And so for the businesses, what we did is we looked for a valid tax ID. So, if you've got test packages with a bunch of ones and zeros entered in as the tax ID, we don't consider that valid. We're not going to migrate that over into an account within Spark, but anything that does have a valid tax ID will then be transitioning over to a dedicated account for that business. On the individual side, we used a combo of SSNs and email addresses to have a unique individual and was able to create an account that way. So again, if you got SSNs that are, all fives, or an email address that's clearly fake, we're not going to migrate those over into a new account contact listing. And then to go along with having these new accounts and contacts, you get some more responsibility and power and the ability to actually manage or delete accounts and manage or delete contacts. So we're not just going to say anyone can come in and just wipe out a bunch of account or contact listings. You do have to have special permission to manage those, and that is controlled on the backend configuration. So if you want any help with that configuration, your CSM again will be more than happy to help you walk through those changes of updating that account and contact permission-based information. So as I alluded to a little earlier, we're going to talk about the package creation and how this has now changed. So the first thing that you'll notice is that we have totally revamped the package creation process to help support this new account and contact option that we have available to you. So in doing so, we have reordered the steps of that package creation. So you'll notice this immediately when you go to create a loan package in Spark. So first things first, we're going to ask you about the business information. So, if you've got Tanner's Tacos, that's the first thing you'll enter in along with his address, contact information, etc. What we do at that point is then flow into the package information so we can pre-fill out some of those package details. Think the description for the package or the name of the package. we'll default that to the business that you listed in the initial step. You'll then flow into that primary contact information, and it'll follow up with a summary page showcasing exactly what you've entered in. And at any point in time, you can step backwards and forwards through these steps. You don't necessarily have to do them sequentially, but just know that you can also make changes. And then for any existing account, Spark is going to allow you to make a choice. What do you want to import? You want a certain set of documents? Do you want to go ahead and import all the collateral? Maybe you want to include some owners and their documentation. You can now do that. And part of that, and we'll go into this again in the next slide, is, how do we choose the documents that you're going to be able to list? We have a new concept of a global document listing. And so all of these different pieces and entities are meant to make repeat borrowers and that copy package process a lot smoother for you moving forward. So then, rather than having to type in all the information for Tanner's Tacos twice, you can simply select it from one listing and it will populate all of those fields. Think EIN, address, phone number, email address, all of that will be populated for you. So yay for no rekeying. This will also update how you look at your lead conversions. So before, if you remembered, the lead conversion was pretty static. You didn't have the ability to go in and edit that lead, but now it's going to more closely resemble the new create package process. So when we say that repeat accounts will be resolved, what we mean by that is if you have a borrower that submits a lead and they already have an account in Spark, rather than creating a brand new account, you can say, oh, you know what? Joe already has an account. I'm going to choose this rather than creating 2 extra contacts that I don't need because we already have it listed. So you can kind of skip that step of having to, again, recreate something from scratch because you've already got it within the system. So again, as I mentioned a second ago, you're actually able to more easily review the information and update it. So, let's say someone fat fingered their account or they, messed up their address, put in the wrong numbers, you can actually update it for them upon the lead conversion. So that way you don't have to wait until you actually get into Spark to make those changes. And then some other miscellaneous new items that we've included. We're now able to support exporting packaged documents, which we could do that previously for our PPP loans, but now we've extended that all the way out to all of our additional loan products. So you can export that from the homepage to make it a little easier to get multiple files out of Spark at once. Again, as I mentioned earlier, we have this concept of a global placeholder now, which that's going to be something that you will configure with the help of your CSM on the back end. And those are those document placeholders that you can copy from package to package. So it can be as long of a list as you want or as short of a list. It really will depend on what your organization's needs and wants are. And then we've made some API enhancements to go along with these new account and contact concepts. So we have new endpoints and webhooks in order to support any of those changes made to accounts and contacts, which those of you using our API and, linking it with the CRM system, this should be really helpful for you all. All right, let's roll right into what's changed. Again, the big one, accounts and contacts. You'll notice that right off the bat. And this comes along with adding businesses and individuals to a package. So rather than you simply typing in, Sally Jones as an individual, what Spark is going to do now is actually run a search in the background. So let's say, Sally Jones had a loan from 2 years ago and a different lender originated it, or, a different BDO originated that loan and you weren't aware that Sally was already in the system. Spark does the legwork and they say, hey, by the way, we already have a record for her. Do you want to just use this borrower? So that's what we mean by changing the concept of adding businesses and individuals. And that also applies to updating businesses and individuals. So you'll get a fun little warning if you want to change a piece of information that's used on a global account. So let's say, again, you want to change Sally Jones, her name from Sally Jones to Sally Smith. You'll get a little warning that Spark says, hey, you sure you want to change this? Because it's going to change it everywhere. And then when a package is actually completed, we're going to take a snapshot of that information to preserve it, because there are changes that do occur, as you all well know, throughout the lending process. You know, people move, addresses change. So we want to make sure we preserve the information at a point in time when the loan package is completed. And then we also have changed the experience of what it looks like to create an authorized user. Some of you know this pain point where they might be an individual listed on the package, but they're not an authorized user. So we try to cut out that middle step, and any person who is listed as an individual on the loan package will also automatically be listed as an authorized user. However, don't fret, we're not going to send them an email to invite them in automatically. You do have to manually invite people to the system. So just because we're automatically adding them to the authorized user listing doesn't mean they automatically get invited in. So the information is still preserved and secrecy is maintained. A few more things that have changed recently. You no longer have to create a business or individual via a task. We just used to have that ability, and that will no longer be available to you. We also added a few additional legal structures, and you can now unlock a package for 24 hours. We've got a life insurance discussion widget that now supports snippets, whereas before it was just a standard field. And when you're batch lead conversion, what we're actually going to do is tie the business information to we won't be able to actually tie that business information to an existing account. So if you decide to use a batch lead conversion, we're not going to do that resolution behind the scenes. So just keep that in mind. You can still do a batch conversion, but we just won't be able to parse out if it has an existing account. And then we're streamlining the creation of the businesses and individuals for the automated packages. And essentially what we're doing in that sense, again, it's related to that accounts and contacts concept, where if you scan a tax form and Sally Jones is an individual who already exists in Spark, we're going to pull that off her tax form and say, hey, you know, she already exists. We don't need to create a new contact for her. And then we've added some additional reporting fields to help support some of the leasing items that we're building out in the future. And then we're also doing something on the configuration side where you can better manage lender contacts, which again, if you've ever had to add individuals to a particular location on the back end, it can get a little painful sometimes, and this is a way to streamline that process. And so we got a few things that we also fixed since our last release. First one is the credit authorization and the address requirement. So it will now properly require an address prior to completing and submitting that activity in an information request. We also had an issue with the stress analysis and hidden periods. So now the stress analysis for the debt service coverage will honor that period visibility. So if it's meant to show, it'll show. If it's meant to be hidden, it will be hidden. We've also improved the speed of the page load times for the user management. So this is your users and roles page on the security side of the back end. It was loading a little slow previously, so we just picked up that speed of the page load. We've also updated the consolidated analysis totals and where they weren't adding up properly, so we went ahead and fixed that. And then in the SBA eligibility, you might have noticed that the G845 link was broken and sent to a previous version of the form, which we have now updated to the latest version. All right, and now I will fire it over to Mr. Mao, and he'll be able to show you all the fun ins and outs of that accounts and contacts that we just discussed.
All right, thanks, Emily. Just give me a moment and I will share my screen. All right, just a confirmation, Emily, you can see Spark on my screen?
Yes, all good.
All right, excellent. Okay, so for our demo, kind of the first part is going to focus all on the new features that we've added related to accounts and contacts. Then we'll transition into what the new create package experience is. So not only is that going to be creating a package, but it's also going to include lead conversion. Then we'll transition into adding existing businesses and individuals to existing loan packages, because we know it's a scenario that will exist. And finally, we'll wrap up our demos with some discussions around authorized users so you can better understand how that will work once this release is out. And then we'll close the demos today with a quick walkthrough of the new API documentation that will be rolled out in the 7.2 release. It's going to be obviously more interested if you're a developer type or if you're leveraging Spark within your organization to synchronize with the Dynamic CRM or Salesforce. The developers within your org or third parties that you're working with will be glad to see that we have improved documentation. So, all right, so let's get started. So once you log in, everyone will have access to a new top-level navigation item. In this case, you see it here. It's called Accounts. When you click into Accounts, we're going to show a listing of all the global accounts that we identified within your environment. So our accounts page is going to look a lot similar to some of the other pages that were rolled out during the PPP program. In that it has a tabular listing of information. You have the ability to change views by using our view button. And the views that we're going to ship with out of the box are all active accounts, my accounts, and inactive accounts. So I can transition my views by simply selecting the different view. We'll go back to all active accounts. We'll also support filters. So I can show my filters, simply look for an account, apply my filter, and then my filter will be applied. I can go ahead and clear that filter, which will then close my filters and then show me the entire list. And then we also have an action here at the top in order to create a new account, which I'll go into in a little bit. So as Emily mentioned, we've introduced some additional permissions within Spark. Those permissions will be applied to this page as well as other pages that deal with accounts. The first permission I'm going to talk about is the ability to manage accounts. If you have that permission, that means you can create new accounts from the screen. In addition, you'll be able to edit the details of an account. You'll be able to assign ownership to an account. So assigning ownership is assigning a business development officer or a lender within your organization to be the owner of that account. You'll be able to activate or deactivate accounts. You'll be able to merge accounts, and I'll talk about that scenario later on. But if you don't have the ability to delete, the delete option will not be available. So that is a separate permission called can delete accounts. If you have that permission, you will be able to delete accounts that exist. Now, keep in mind, we won't let you delete an account if there's related information that we feel is important. We're not going to just automatically clean up every loan that account was associated to. So there will be some hard stops along the way if you attempt to delete accounts that have relationships already at Spark. All right, let's jump into an account details page. So for this, we're going to use Big Brewing Company LLC, and you'll notice I can just click on the name here, or I could use my actions and select view. Both will take me to our account details page. And on the account details page, we've kind of broken things out into different widgets. The first widget is our account details widget, where we're showing summary information about the account. If I want to edit any information, I simply click Edit Details. We'll open up a little modal dialog to give you the opportunity to make changes to that account. I also have the ability to remove an address or update the current address. Over here in the middle, we have a listing of all the contacts tied to the account. And then we have two additional widgets. One is showing completed loan packages. One is showing inactive loan packages. If I had any active loan packages, those would be displayed as well. Emily did talk about the fact that we do have the concept of a new product family that we're calling, well, not that we're calling, it is called the leasing product family. Any lease would show up in a separate widget since it is a different product family that we have in Spark. All right, if I wanted to create a new account, I can do that by jumping back to my account listing. You'll see we have a new account button. I'm going to go ahead and click on new. And to create an account, we're not really going to require a lot of information. All we're going to require out of the gate is the name. At any point in time, I can go back and edit that account. So we're just going to give this a very generic name called My Account. We're going to go ahead and click Create. And it's going to take you into your account details. So from here, as you already saw, I can edit the details. I can add an address. And we'll save that. And now I can go ahead and add contacts. Now, when we're dealing with contacts on an account, I have the ability to search for existing contacts. So that's what it's going to default to. So if I wanted to add Alexa Herman to my account, I simply start typing in, his name shows up, or sorry, her name shows up, and I simply click add. If I want to add a contact that I know is a brand new contact that doesn't exist, I can simply click on, I want to create a new account, or sorry, new contact. It's going to be Tim Jones. The email doesn't matter, so it's tj@saml.com. We're going to go ahead and click add, and it's going to add Tim Jones. So I just added an existing contact with Alexa, and I added a new contact in Tim Jones. In order to manage contacts with an account, that is a separate permission. So we kind of separated that from the ability to manage accounts. There's two specific permissions related to contacts. The first is managing contacts, which means that you can add, edit, and merge contacts for an account. And then the separate permission, similar to accounts, is the ability to delete contacts. So if I have the ability to delete a contact, then my actions menu would also include the delete action. So if I wanted to delete Tim, I can just go and delete him. As with accounts, we won't let you delete a contact if there's relevant information tied to that contact. We will kind of treat that as a hard stop, and we will not allow you to delete the individual. All right, so now we've kind of created our first account, I want to talk about some scenarios that are going to be common. As Emily talked about during her part of the overview today, we came up with an approach to migrate all of your existing business information and individual information into accounts and contacts. And we did that by looking at valid tax IDs, both on the account side, as well as valid SSNs on the individual side. We also leveraged the fact that some of your individuals were logged in as authorized users, and those users had contacts behind the scenes. So we had valid email addresses that we could use to kind of tie these entities together. The ownership structures that were defined within your packages was used to pre-populate the list of contacts for all the accounts as well. Now we know that there may be times when there's duplicate contacts, there may be duplicate accounts as well that were created because maybe you didn't capture a tax ID for your business, or maybe you didn't capture a social security number for an individual. If there's duplicate accounts or contacts, we do have ways to merge those. So let's kind of walk through the first scenario of merging contacts. And for this, I'm going to use the Twisted Oak account that I have here. We're going to go ahead and jump into the details. And when I open up my Twisted Oak account, I can see that I have 2 April Warners. Now this is I shouldn't say going to be a common, but this will more than likely happen if you had an individual related to 2 different loan packages, but in one loan package you didn't enter an SSN, and in the other loan package you did enter an SSN, and you didn't have an email address to kind of tie those individuals together. What you have the ability to do is, using the actions menu, you can merge. So we're going to go ahead and say merge. It's letting me know it's going to, when merging contacts, every package that is associated with the contact that you are about to merge will be merged into the contact that you choose. So I'm going to go ahead and say I'm going to merge this into April Warner. And once I click merge, you'll notice it's going to deactivate the old April Warner contact, and any information that was associated to that April Warner is now associated to the existing primary contact, April Warner. And what I should be able to do now is delete that old contact and remove that from Spark. So that's going to be an exercise that you'll be going through if you need to merge contacts. Now if you don't care that there's duplicates out there, it's fine. Nothing's going to be harmed in Spark if you leave them as is. We just wanted to give you the opportunity to merge those contacts. Well, you may have noticed when I was on my account listing that I also have a Twisted Oak Wood-Fired Pizza LLC account that looks fairly similar. Well, with the exception of the telephone number, but I can see that the primary contact for both is April Warner. Let's go and look at the Twisted Oak Wood-Fired Pizza LLC account, and I can see it looks like it has about the same contacts and it has an active loan package that's currently going through the origination process. If we jump back to the Twisted Oak account, you'll see that this one has a completed loan package. Looks like they had a PPP loan with this lender. So this is a scenario that may come up again if you didn't have valid tax IDs, or if something was different, we were unable to match those accounts. There will be 2 or maybe more accounts that will need to be merged. Since we do support merging, you'll use the actions menu. You're going to start with the account that you want to be deactivated and you want to have merged into a different primary account. So we're going to go ahead and merge Twisted Oak into Twisted Oak Wood-Fired Pizza LLC, because that's the one that I want to be the primary account. So we'll go ahead and click merge. And after this merge happens, you'll notice that that loan package that was completed no longer is associated with this account. And this account is now inactive. If I jump into Twisted Oak Wood-Fired Pizza LLC, which is kind of the new account, you'll see that it's brought in that Paycheck Protection Program loan as being associated now to Twisted Oak Wood-Fired Pizza LLC. And if I want to clean up my data, I can go into, well, now it's an inactive account, so you don't see it. I can go to inactive accounts, and we're going to show a filter, and we're going to search for Twisted. And we'll jump into that. And actually, I could have deleted it from that other screen, but we're going to just delete this account now. It's not going to delete the contacts because those contacts are actually the same. It's just going to delete this account record. And now that Twisted Oak account has been deleted. So merging accounts, merging contacts supported in Spark. It is something that you may be doing after the 7.2 release rolls out. But as I previously mentioned, it will not be a requirement for you to do that. You can do it gradually as time goes on. All right, so we talked about accounts and contacts. Let's now jump into package creation. So to start, you may have noticed when I was within the context of a specific account that we do have a convenient new package button that you can use to create a package. And really what this is going to do, it's going to pre-fill the account that you currently have selected in our package creation wizard. So now that I've selected Twisted Oak Wood-Fired Pizza, you'll notice my first page within my first step of my package creation is going to be automatically pre-filled. If I wanted to make any changes, I could. I'm just going to use those defaults. We're going to go ahead and click continue. As Emily mentioned before, we moved these steps around slightly. So we're going to ask for business information first, then we'll ask for package information. And a primary reason for that is because we've heard feedback from customers that 9 times out of 10, the name of my package is the same as the name of my business. So we're going to default that package name to your business name. I'm just going to add something to differentiate this. We're going to call this Loan 2. And we're going to buy equipment. I'm going to use a 7A product. You're going to notice that these are no longer drop downs. These are all search as you type. We felt that that's a better user experience. So now I can, if I select into that, it's going to act like a drop down, but as I type in, it's going to narrow my list. I can ignore the fact that those looks like it's autocomplete. That's just because I've entered a lot of loans from within my browser. So that's just remembering history, but we're going to enter in 150,000 for my estimated amount and a closing date of the 31st, and we'll click continue. Now, since I've selected an existing account, Spark knows that there's a prior loan that has existing business documentation. If I would have had any collateral on that prior loan, the collateral would have been listed here as well. In this case, it's identifying that there's articles of our organization, an operating agreement, an income statement, and a tax return for this business. If I don't want any of those, I could uncheck them all. If I want all of them, I could select them all, or I could remove anything that I don't care about. This list of documents that shows up here is driven by what we're calling global documents. It's really a new setting in Spark administration at the document type level that allows you to turn on any placeholder or document type that exists in Spark and turn it into what we call a global document. If it's flagged as a global document and the account has a prior loan or a prior lease, we're going to pull that information in as a candidate to be used in the next package that you create. Let's go ahead and click continue. The next step is to select owners. In this case, it identified April as an owner. April owns 70% of that business. And if I had uploaded prior documentation for April, it would allow me to select those documents as well. If everything looks good, I simply click continue. We are then presenting you with a summary page. If you want to make any changes to what you've seen, simply use the change button. I can also navigate backwards steps by simply clicking on this top link. And if I don't want to create a loan, I could simply click cancel. Now, let's say I wanted to create a package for a business that doesn't exist yet. So I know it's not an account that exists. To do that, I use my actions menu and I'll jump into my create new package flow again. And in this case, this is going to be a test business. And you'll notice that the autocomplete is showing no results, but that's fine. I can simply tab away and it's going to now take me through the process of creating a new business. When creating a new business on the fly like this, all I need to do is we can specify a legal structure, but the remainder of the form is not required. If you have a tax ID, address, business phone, etc., that's great. We also are showing you additional details that you can provide if you have it, but if you don't have it, it's fine. I can go ahead and click continue. We then see our package information. It's going to populate with the name of that business. We're going to select our 7A product and general processing, 150,000, closing on the 31st. We'll go ahead and click continue. Now, since I didn't select an existing account, it knows that my next step is to document contact information. And when documenting contact information, we're just going to require you to enter in the contact name and then a transaction role for that individual. If you happen to type in the name of a contact that already exists, so in this case, this is Alexa Herman's other business, I see that Alexa Herman is also associated to Big Brewing Company LLC, as well as another account called My Account. If I want to use Alexa for this loan, I could simply click here by using select. If I do not want to use Alexa, and this happens to be some other Alexa Herman, I can say no thanks. I'll use the information that I entered to create a new contact. If I was to choose Alexa, I simply click select, and now I'm going to use that existing contact. You'll notice that it's also populated all of the information for Alexa on my page. In addition, it's allowing me to choose existing documents for Alexa. So let's go ahead and use Alexa. Alexa is going to be a guarantor. We'll use all those documents. We're going to click continue, and then we'll go ahead and create this package. So now it's going to create a new business called Test Business for an existing contact named Alexa Herman. And once my package gets created, it's going to take me to my package summary screen as we do today in Spark. And if I was to go and look at my business listing, you'll see the business listed. And then you'll see the individual listing has Alexa listed as well. And if I go to my account listing, since I created a new account on the fly, there's my new test business with a primary contact of Alexa. And if I click into test business, I can see that that business has an active loan for 150,000. All right, so that's kind of package creation. Again, keep in mind, you can still create packages without having an existing account or existing contact. It's going to flow the same way it did before. If you happen to have an existing account or existing contact, we'll allow you to select that existing account or contact. And if there's global documents or if there's collateral related to the business or individual that you're using to create the package with, we will allow you to pull forward key information from the most recent package. All right, let's move into lead conversion. So I'm using my top navigation, jumping to my lead listing, and I have one submitted lead in my environment for a business called Microsoft and a contact named Jerry West. To convert the lead, the same action will be available, convert to package. When I select on that action, we have made changes to how lead conversion works. In this case, we will populate the various steps with information that exists on the lead and give you the opportunity to make corrections or make whatever adjustments you need. If the lead gives you complete business information, personal information, and package information, you really aren't going to be required to enter anything in. The reason why we're doing this is we want to be able to resolve any business name that matches either by the name that was entered or the tax ID that we received on that lead form. In this case, it's seeing that there is an existing Microsoft account. So we're going to go ahead and use that so we don't start creating duplicate accounts within Spark. I'll go ahead and click continue. It's going to take me to step 2. This is my package information. Package defaults to the name. I can select an owner, a product, an amount, and a closing date. So that's very similar to how lead conversion worked before. If I click continue, it's now going to pull in the contact information and give me the opportunity to choose a role that this individual is going to play in the transaction. Go ahead and click continue. And now if I want to automatically activate an account for that individual and assign him an information request, I can go ahead and do that by clicking convert. It sets up the user account, notifies Jerry West that there's a new portal for him to access. The information request is automatically activated and he has a number of tasks that he'll need to complete now in his portal. So that's how lead conversion works in the new world. One of the things I'm not going to go through as part of this demo is document analysis, but that is another area where eventually a package gets created. And since what we're trying to do is we're trying to resolve existing accounts and contacts with tax IDs and names that are pulled off of tax returns, you'll have a similar type experience where we're going to attempt to identify who this name or tax ID matches, whether it's an account or a contact, so that you can resolve those prior to importing that information in Spark. All right, so now that we have an existing package called Microsoft with an existing account called, well, Microsoft, let's go ahead and add an existing business to a package. So this is kind of the next scenario I want to talk about, moving off of package creation and into managing businesses and individuals within a package. To create a new business, we still have the same add business option. So if I click add business, if this was going to be a brand new business, I can just start typing it in. So great testing. There's no existing business with that name, so I could say this is going to be it's an existing business. It's going to be a borrower for this loan. It's an operating company. It's not the primary business. And it is an S corporation. So I can still create businesses just as I did before. Behind the scenes, this is actually going to create an account. So if I was to look at my account listing, there's going to be a new account called Great Testing. If I was to add a business and the business already existed, in this case, I'm going to look for my Big Brew business. So there's my Big Brewing Company account, which is owned by Alexa. We'll go ahead and select that account. Since it's an existing account, it's going to allow me to import business documentation automatically into this loan. And I want to save time. I want to bring that business information in. We're going to go ahead and click continue. It's also identifying that that business has ownership. Alex owns 50% and Bob owns 50%. We're going to go ahead and import that information. And now it's going to go and create that business, create the ownership records, import all the documentation, and then finally allow me to designate what transaction role this business is going to play on this loan package. I might make a couple additional changes here. Everything else looks good. We're going to save and close. And now we've got Big Brewing Company, which was an existing account that had documented ownership that's been pulled in. And if I was to go and look at the individuals, you'll see that it's also pulled in Alexa and Bob as well. So that's an example of how I can add an existing account to create a business on an existing package. Now I can do the same thing on the individual listing as well. If I want to add an individual, I can take the same steps I take today. In this case, we're going to add Emily Smith. It's not finding anyone with the name of Emily Smith. And we're going to make Emily Smith a guarantor. And she will be a full secured guarantor. And we'll go ahead and click save and close. So it didn't find an existing Emily Smith, so it's just allowing me to create a new individual, which behind the scenes is creating a contact for me within Spark. If I wanted to add an existing individual, and in this case, I actually already added the individual that I wanted to use, so we're going to get rid of Alexa. All right, so we're going to re-add Alexa. So we're going to go ahead and look for Alexa Herman here. And as I type in that name, Spark comes back and says, hey, is this who you're wanting to add? Here's Alexa Herman. Alexa is associated to Big Brewing Company, my account, an account called Test Business. And yes, that's the Alexa I want to add. These are the documents that are available for me based on the most recent loan Alexa was associated to. Let's go ahead and import that information and make Alexa a guarantor, full secured, and we'll save and close. So I've just brought Alexa back in. Now that one probably looked a little bit odd in the fact that Alexa, when I originally added her, she had 50% ownership of Big Brewing Company. I deleted that individual from the package. It didn't delete Alexa behind the scenes. But when I re-added Alexa, when you add just an individual, we don't automatically set up the ownership for you. All right, so that's an example of adding an existing individual to a package. Let's move into updating businesses and updating individuals on a package. So one of the things that we wanted to make sure people were aware of is when you go use the actions menu and you click edit on an individual that's been associated, if you were to make any change that we feel is a significant change that changes the definition of what that contact is or was. So if I want to change this to Todd, this is now Todd Herman, you'll see that we have a little warning. This is letting me know this is a global field. So any changes that I make to this field will update this individual's name everywhere that it appears in all active packages. If I didn't want to make that change, I can dismiss it. If I didn't want to make that change, I would click undo and it's going to revert it back to Alexa. If I wanted to make that change, I can simply dismiss that warning, and you'll notice that my save and close is disabled until I make a decision. So let's go ahead and dismiss that warning. I can now save. We'll go ahead and save and close. And now I've changed Alexa Herman to Todd Herman wherever Alexa Herman showed up. So if I went back to my account listing and looked up my Big Brewing Company, I would now see Todd Herman listed instead of Alexa Herman. So you see why we have that global warning now is because we want to make sure that you know that you are changing the definition of this contact. That same logic applies to businesses. So if I go into my business listing, in this case, we're going to update Microsoft, and I go and click edit. If I change my legal business name from Microsoft to Microsoft, it's telling me this is a global field. Making edits here will update the business name everywhere it appears in all active packages. If I'm okay with that because it was just a typo, great, I just dismiss it. If I wanted to undo it, I just use the undo. Now, we didn't do that for every single field on this page. We only did it for the names because we know that most of you are existing users of Spark. And historically, when you've used Spark, you may have added a business incorrectly or realize that the business should be updated to something different. Well, now that we have the concept of global accounts and global contacts, just changing the name isn't going to be recommended. So we want to make sure that you're aware of what you're doing when you're doing it. So let's go ahead and change that to Microsoft. Apparently I need a website as well. So we'll set the website and close that form. All right, so the next thing I want to cover is the changes that we've made to our authorized users. And for this, I'm going to actually use a different package. We're going to use our Twisted Oak Wood-Fired Pizza LLC package. And I'm going to jump into first I'm going to show you the individuals listed on the package. So we have 4 individuals listed here. And if I go to authorized users, you're going to have to trust me, but I didn't manually add any of these authorized users to this page. What Spark will do now is it's going to look at the individuals that are relevant to the transaction, which were those 4 individuals that were already listed in the individual listing, and it's going to automatically include them as candidates to be authorized users to the package. And the way I can tell if the users have access is to determine, number one, this first user here has been invited. So April was invited at some point in time. She has not logged in. I see Bo Bryan has not been invited. Carrie Sawyer must have an existing user account with Spark. She last logged in a couple days ago, but she hasn't been invited to this package. So if Carrie was to log in, she would not be able to access this Twisted Oak wood-fired pizza. You still have control over who has access to your package. And then finally, we've got an individual named Nick Warner. Nick must be the husband of April. And Nick is missing an email address. So I have no way to invite him unless I use the actions menu and update his email address from here. So the key takeaway is any individual that's on your loan package will automatically show as an authorized user, but you as the controller of that package, you're the one who controls who has access to log in. If I want to invite Brian, I can send a welcome email. And during the sending process, you'll notice I can select what access level I want Brian to have. Brian can access all personal information. My personal information was just his personal information and documents, or no personal information. We're going to leave it as my. That's what we default to. So we're going to go ahead and send that so you can see now that Brian's been invited. Let's say I don't want Carrie to access Spark at all. You'll notice that I have the ability to deactivate her account. So if I want to be able to deactivate, I can deactivate, and that probably should have said inactive, but since she hasn't been invited yet, it doesn't really matter. And if I want to invite Nick Warner, the first thing I need to do is update his email address, and this is going to be nw@sample.com. We're going to update his email, and I'm going to go ahead and send him an email as well. So you still have the ability to control who has access to your loan package. Now, what about the users that aren't necessarily relevant to the transactions? You didn't add them as individuals, but you still want them to get access to Spark. This may be an attorney, an accountant, or some other individual who's working with the business. You can do that. You can do that by clicking Add New Authorized User. And this experience has changed. So now I can actually look for, so we're going to look for Jerry West, and it's going to say, hey, you already have a Jerry West within Spark. I can select Jerry West, and I can give him access to all personal information. And this is now going to add Jerry West, and now he's available to invite to the loan package. I also have the ability to just add someone on the fly. So this is going to be someone named Tom Smith. And I don't need a phone number, but I'm going to give Tom Smith, he's not going to have access to any personal information, so we're just going to go ahead and add that account. So I still have the ability to add one-off authorized users. These users are not individuals. So if we go back to our individual listing, you'll see that Tom Smith is not listed here. He's just someone who needs access because he's an attorney or an accountant. All right, so those are kind of some of the key changes that we've made around authorized users. The final part of the demo that I want to talk about is our API. And this is still somewhat of a work in progress. It will be done by the time we release this to your organization, but we're revamping how our documentation is written. So it should be easier to use. So if you have access to the API, you'll have access to our API documentation. And we provide you with kind of this introduction about here's how you can set up get an API token. Here's the detailed documentation for all of our endpoints. So the endpoints that are currently documented are accounts, contacts, businesses, individuals, but all of the other endpoints will be listed here. And then we're also introducing this concept of recipes. So recipes are going to be common scenarios that you as a developer or your organization may want to consider. So some of the popular recipes that we're more than likely going to have published out of the gate are, let's say you have a CRM system, like a Salesforce or a Microsoft CRM. we have a recipe that shows you here's how you can create an account through our API and tie it to your external system by passing in an external ID. And really what that means is as changes happen to the account within Spark, we can send a webhook to whatever your organization has written, and you can now keep those systems in sync. One of the nice things about our recipes here and all of our documentation is that if you have access to use our API, you'll be able to actually execute test requests. So if I go ahead and execute this, it actually just created an account called test account with this tax ID, and it kicked me back a new account ID. So I just used our API to create an account. Now, obviously, we have a warning here at the top that when you execute these recipes or do any of these samples, it's going to create data within your Spark environment that you would need to go and clean up if you don't want it to exist. So use this with caution. We just felt this would be a nice way for the developers in the room to see how to actually use our API. A couple other recipes that may be interesting is associating a contact to an account. So if I go into that recipe, you'll notice this is a multiple step process. So the first thing you need to do is you need to create an account. So if I was to execute that, maybe I want to change the name of this. This is going to be a test account 2. We're going to go ahead and execute that one. So just create an account called test account 2. Now I want to create a contact. I'm going to leave this default to be John Stephen Doe. Let's go ahead and execute that. So I just created a contact, showing me what the results are. And then finally, I can associate that contact to the account. So it's already pre-filled everything for me. I can go ahead and execute that, and it's associated the contact to the account. So I'm probably geeking out here, but if I was to go to my account listing, and there's my test account 2, if I open it up, I can see that it created that account and it created the contact. I obviously could have done things to associate to as a primary contact using our API. I didn't do all that, but that just gives you an idea of some of the new API documentation that we have, that we'll have available to the developers or the third parties that you're working with to do some integrations with Spark. So that brings me to the end of the demos and the scenarios I wanted to cover today. And I guess we'll leave the remainder of the time for questions.
So far, I just have one comment that this is awesome, and I couldn't agree more.
The API part, or which part?
I think just in general, Eric. Right. I don't see any other questions coming in right now. But if you all do have any other questions or concerns, I know this is a lot to digest. This is a pretty big change. But do keep in mind that your CSMs will be reaching out to you all directly and kind of dig into this some more as we move through this process.
Awesome. Thanks, Emily.
All right. Seeing none, we'll wrap this up. Thank you all for your attendance today, and we'll be in touch.